Hey guys, Making Inferences, Power Standard 2. So if you're watching this, you just need a quick review. So we're going to quickly go through some of these slides about making inferences. So some key understandings. And just a reminder, make sure you are writing some notes in your very important point box, and also and you're going to be answering the questions in box number 2. So some things you really need to understand about inferences. Inferences are often derived, or they come from, explicit details. Those are the details that are from the text. Now, implicit details are the blanks or the holes that we try to fill from the clues or the explicit details. So making inferences through explicit and implicit details helps you interpret the writer's work. So an inference, once again, is a conclusion based on what you read and what you already know. So the words from the text and your prior knowledge. So you make inferences by taking what you know and the details from the text to form conclusions. Now, the most obvious details are explicit details. Explicit details are concrete, specifically stated. It's what the author is directly telling you. So explicit is when the author directly tells you. So let's look at this picture. There's 6 explicit details in this picture. First explicit, they have popcorn. The young man, all 3. Clearly, they have their pajamas on, so it's nighttime. We can also assume that they are friends. They're lying on top of blankets. They're definitely young. The boy's eyes are wide open, so they're clearly watching something in front of them. We can see some light, so we can also assume from the explicit details that they are probably watching TV. Let's look at this image right here and gather as many explicit, that means direct details, what the author is directly telling us. Based on, so we don't want to make an inference, we just want to look at the explicit details, what the author is directly telling us. So which of the following is an example of an explicit detail? The girl is taking a driver's test. The girl is nervous. The man is holding a pen. It's summertime. So another thing to remember about explicit detail as you're attempting to write your answer is an explicit detail can be proven. If you selected, the man is holding a pen, you are correct because you can clearly observe this detail without trying to interpret. Now, we could probably interpret that the girl is taking a driver's test because she's young, he's older, he has a clipboard in his hand. So we can make that inference, but the most explicit telling us detail is he's holding a pen. So implicit details are assumptions. Remember, implicit details are assumptions that you derive from the explicit details. So let's look at the picture again. So what could be an implicit, an assumption, or an inference? It's nighttime. They're watching TV. What they're watching is scary. Based on what evidence? Their eyes are wide open and they're looking shocked, and he's covering his mouth. What do you do when you watch something scary? You cover your mouth so that you don't scream. So we took our prior knowledge and we took explicit details from the text to make assumptions, and that's how you make inferences. Let's look at this one. So we have a lot of explicit details. We have 2 young men. They are in cap and gowns. They have the same cap and gowns. They're smiling, so clearly they're happy. They're both holding things in their hand. Those are all explicit details. Which of the following is an example of an implicit detail? If you selected the students just graduated, you are exactly correct. These are all explicit details. Very good. Now, let's take a look at this picture below. Then determine whether each detail is explicit or implicit. So, we have two girls. Looks like they're friends because one has her arm around the other. The girl in the pink shirt, clearly looks upset. The girl in the blue shirt clearly looks to be consoling her. And that's just about it. So, let's see. Something unfortunate happened to the girl in pink. The author isn't directly telling us that, but rather showing us. So that would probably be an implicit detail. Let's look at the second one. The girl in purple has her arm around the other girl's shoulder. Is that directly being shown, or we have to assume that? The girl in pink is sad. That's also another explicit detail. The girl in pink is holding her head in her hand. Once again, another detail that we clearly can see. Explicit. Let's see if we're right. So, the girl in pink is sad. That is not an explicit detail. It's actually implicit. We don't know if she's sad or not. We can assume, but it's not an actual detail that we know for sure, a detail that is concrete, specifically stated. So the correct answer is implicit. So, making inferences through explicit and implicit details help you interpret the writer's work. And that's what the writer wants you to be able to do. They want you to be able to interpret or understand their work, but they don't want to give you everything. They don't want to tell you everything. They want you to be challenged and to figure it out on your own. So find the explicit details in the passage to help you determine what Marge does for a living. As Marge pulled into her driveway, she let out a deep, exhausted sigh. In the oversized side view mirror, she glimpsed the crow's feet that framed her eye. Crow's feet, explicit detail. Helped along by the years of highway sun pounding through the windshield, expressly stated. She turned the key to cut the ignition, and the great thundering of the engine instantly ceased. As she rubbed her stiff back, she reached across the cab towards the glove box, fishing out 2 loose aspirin from among the napkins and fuses. She swallowed them with the last cold dregs of coffee from her beat-up thermos. When Marge looked up, she saw her 2 young daughters running across the lawn towards her truck and felt tears well up in her eyes. Every time she came home, the first thing she noticed was how much they had grown without her. What do the explicit details tell you about Marge's job? Is she a teacher, a doctor, a long-distance truck driver, or president of a technology company? So, she pulled into her driveway. She's tired. She's got crow's feet. Years of highway sun pounding through the windshield have caused the crow's feet. So she's been on the highway for years. She turned the key to cut the ignition. Great thundering of the engine ceased. So whatever kind of vehicle it is, it's big. I'm using my explicit details to make assumptions. As she rubbed her seat back, she reached across the cab. Most regular cars don't have cab. So I'm automatically eliminating teacher and president. I'm going to go with long distance truck driver. Yes. The wrinkles from her years of sun, the thundering engine, time away from home, make this the best option. All right, you try this one. Need a hint? So what did you select? If you selected C, Marge doesn't seem to like her job, you were right on task. The fact that she has to do all this, she's been in there for years. Her daughters came up to her, they started crying. You can definitely infer that she doesn't seem to like her job. Let's do a couple more. Need a hint? So is it A, B, C, or D? If you selected A, you're exactly right. The author states if we Americans seal ourselves into our dens and basements, we'll cease to be part of the beautiful shimmering web that is the great organism of the universe. So this implies, or we can infer, that the writer believes a disconnect of Americans from the natural world is directly related to a loss of your own natural identity. Almost done. One more. So make sure you pay attention to the explicit details. Need a hint? So let's see. So B. Let's see if B is a reasonable inference. Yes, from the man's tossing, we can infer he's been trying to sleep but hasn't been successful. I again lay awake. Definitely can't infer that he's going to leave his home and what changes in his life. He steps to the window and sees only starlight. From this, we infer that he lives in a place that normally has good weather. Starlight doesn't determine good weather. He's observing the geese, so we can infer he has a background in the natural sciences. You don't need to have a background in natural sciences to observe geese. So the only reasonable inference was B. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. So go ahead and close this out and complete your next activity. Great job.